Hey everyone, good morning and good evening. Okay, let's start with today's session. Let's see what exactly we're doing today. Okay, so last time we spoke about work item management. Let me go and do a quick recap. Okay, so last time we spoke about work item management. We saw how we can create work items. We saw how we can migrate work items. We saw how we can create queries out of the work item. And this is how you will be playing around with work items in real time. So that was about work item. Today we'll focus on our first application, wherein we'll be creating a first application in ASP.NET. So this is basically the first project, and then we'll talk about continuous integration, and we'll be building that application and we'll be deploying that application also. Okay, so anyone has any questions till now, guys? Anyone has any difficulty completing the assignments? Any doubt till now? If not, then there is a prerequisite. Before we start, go ahead and download Visual Studio. Any version will be okay. 2019 is preferred. So Visual Studio 2019 for Windows 10 or whatever version of Windows you're using, or if you're using Mac, you can even install Visual Studio for that. You can go with the latest version 2022 also, that doesn't matter, nothing will change. It's only a minor change, or else if you want you can go with 2019. This is the link from where you can download this. It's a simple exe file, guys. Just have to click next and your Visual Studio will get installed on your local system. So go through this link. There will be an installer which will be running. So while you're doing an installer, this is something will get open. Just give me one. Let me show you the installer. So this is the Visual Studio installer which will get downloaded, and in this installer there are two plugins which are required. So make sure to install those two plugins. Wait while the install is coming up. So it's a community edition, guys, which you need to download, not the enterprise one. The enterprise comes only for 30 days free. Post that you have to go and purchase license. So we don't need the enterprise version, we need the community version. Okay, now in this, these are the boxes which you need to check. The first one, ASP.NET Web Development and Azure Development. These are the only boxes which you require, because if you check everything, it's a big file which will get downloaded on the local system. So we don't want unnecessary things. The only thing I required will be ASP.NET Web Development, and we'll need a Azure Development. That's it. These are the plugins which is required. When you get this individual installer page, select this plugin, click on install. Automatically these plugins will get installed. Okay. So this is a prerequisite. So make sure to download Visual Studio. So there are multiple IDE tools which we will be using in this course. The first one is Visual Studio. Second one is VS Code. So these are the IDE tools. IDE tools are nothing but it's an integrated development tool wherein you get support of various plugins. Okay, so basically I just want to give you a look and feel how the developer will be developing an application and how they will be using Git using IDE tools. Okay, so just to give you the look and feel, we are just installing all this and developing things from scratch. Okay, makes sense? Okay, just to reiterate, Bhagya, Visual Studio Toolkit which you need to install, I have shared the link in the group chat. Just go and install Visual Studio. Okay, and there are two plugins which is needed. It's ASP.NET and Azure Development plugin while you're installing the Visual Studio Toolkit. Okay, let's start. Before I start, I need to create a repository. because all my application will go inside this repository. Okay, so we haven't used this also yet. Okay, forget about this. Let's create a new one. Name it as DevOps web app. Give whatever name you want to give. So this is the name which I'm giving to my repository. So I will be creating a web application. So I'm just giving a name as web app. This is in the main branch. If you want to create a new branch out of it, so it's better to do it right itself. And this is the right time to do it. And as I said, this is how you'll be start linking your work items if you want to link any work items. So this is the first place of linking your work item, and eventually you link it with everything whatever you do. If I link it over here, so what will happen if I do any, let's do a link user story, this, let's select user story 3. So what will happen if you go and look into the user story now, that's user story 3. Let's go to the boards. Where is 3? This is 3. Now you'll see the develop branch got linked automatically. Now whatever I do at the develop branch, everything will be posted over here. Whether you do a push, whether you create a PR, whether you do a commit, everything will start popping up over here. So that is the benefit of linking things. Okay, so in reality, the developer who creates a temporary branch, not for the develop branch, he will not link a develop branch. So he creates a temporary branch, so that temporary branch will be linked, and whatever he does on the temporary branch, everything will start popping up. Okay, so we got the develop branch created, and let's go and open Visual Studio now. Or else if you want to clone, there are I have showed you the way of cloning, like just git clone, but if you want, you can directly clone into a IDE tool, like what exactly we are using, Visual Studio. See, it will open a Visual Studio for me, and it will clone the repository directly. So even this is a way of cloning things directly. Okay, I feel this is time consuming because it will go and open Visual Studio for me, then it will ask me for a sign in and things like that it will do. So let's wait while we are cloning. Just to reiterate what exactly we are doing, so this complete week we'll focus on creating an application, we'll focus on building that application, we'll focus on releasing that application. There are two types of build which you can do in Azure DevOps, a classic and a YAML based. So we'll do both. Okay, first we focus on classic. We'll see how the classic build and release happens. Then the second we'll focus on YAML, how the YAML build and release will happen. Because before YAML we need to understand what is YAML syntax, the basic of YAML, then only we'll start writing the YAML scripts. Okay, so this will be the complete week dedicated to build and release, or maybe we'll take more than a week, not just a week, it's not sufficient, so we'll take more than a week. Okay, so if you see, the Visual Studio got opened over here. It's taking time. Let's wait while the page is popping up. Not responding. Okay. Okay, while we are waiting for this, let's understand what exactly is continuous integration. Let me open my PPT. Or else I have it in this PPT also. Just wait. Okay, so do we have everything over here? Integration, yeah, integration is there. What happened to Visual Studio? Still not responding. Okay, let me close this Visual Studio and reopen it. not visible in the task manager. Okay, let's wait while this is not responding. So this is one way of cloning, guys. I'll show you a different way of cloning directly inside the Visual Studio. That is, it will not open things automatically. So this is opening multiple windows automatically. That's why it's not responding right now. And I'm opening Visual Studio after long. That's also a case. Okay, so before I jump on and start creating applications and start building the application, the very important topic is what exactly is continuous integration. What exactly is continuous integration is the very important topic which we need to understand. And this is definitely an interview question. Not straightforward, that they will not ask you what exactly is continuous integration, but it definitely will be an interview question when you go for appear for an interview. I'll give you a scenario how exactly the question will be asked later, but for now, can someone tell me what is continuous integration? What do you understand with the word continuous integration or continuous build? Anyone? Anything will be okay, guys. So whatever you know, just tell me. Based on that, we'll understand.
Yeah, I would say is a continuous integration is a complete when you're talking of your plan, a continuous planning, a continuous testing, and building of code like non-stop or going automatically.
Perfect. Anyone else wants to add something? Anyone? No one?
A continuous integration means uh, we can build and release the pipelines with the help of in between there is a approval, manager approval. That means continuous integration. This delivery and deployment is something related to there is no interruption, like there is no need to requirement for approval like managers and all. So this is the difference between integration and deployment.
Perfect. Okay, so delivery deployment is a different story altogether. So that is something we'll do later. For now, we focus more on integration part. And as rightly said by you guys, that integration is a continuous process wherein the build and the testing is happening continuously. Okay, what do I mean by continuously? That is something we'll discuss in details now. So integration, as we all know, integration starts with a developer. When a developer gets a user story assigned and the developer was asked to create any new feature or to do any new development. Okay, so he makes use of any IDE tool, like he can make use of Visual Studio the way we are using Visual Studio now, Eclipse, VS Code, depending upon the code which he's writing. If he's writing Java, then Eclipse. If he's using .NET, then definitely Visual Studio. If you're using Python and all, then we got PyCharm. So we got dedicated IDE tools which is more specific to that language. It doesn't mean that you cannot write Python in Visual Studio, guys. You can even write Python in Visual Studio. So it's just what tool the developer is comfortable with, the developer will go with that tool. Okay, in my example I have took 3 because we'll be using Java also later. So Visual Studio, Eclipse and VS Code. Now he makes use of those plugins and he starts building his code. Once he's done with the local build, he will push the changes to the local Git repository. So basically he will commit to the local branch itself. So once he's done with the testing and everything development, he will push the changes to the local Git. Once everything is well thorough at the local, then he will push the changes to the remote repository. Now remote repository could be anything. In my case, I took Azure repos. It could be GitHub, it could be GitLab, anything whichever they like. So there's no restriction as such. So whatever the project is using, based on that they will push the changes. Okay, so development using the IDE tool, local commit. Once the local commit is done, pushing the changes into remote repository. Once the changes goes into remote repository, your Azure pipelines, now your build will get triggered automatically. Your Azure build will get triggered automatically because we are talking about continuous integration. Okay, so in continuous integration, the build gets triggered automatically. So the build has multiple phases. You will have your build, you will have your test, you will have your release, you will have your deploy. So over here we are just talking about build test, we are talking about continuous integration. So there is no release and deploy. Release deploy will be in your continuous delivery or continuous deployment, whichever model you are selecting. For now, focus on integration. So what exactly build and test is all about? What exactly happens in the build? So in the build, the code gets merged with your remote repos. Okay, so basically your code is getting merged, and actual build is nothing but compiling source code. What will happen? Your source code will get compiled. Post the compilation, so this is your actual build which is happening over here. Your source code is getting compiled over here, and then you will have your unit test cases. So if there's any unit test cases which needs to be executed, you will have that test cases getting executed. Post that, if you have any automated test cases, such as if you have integrated SonarQube, what exactly is SonarQube, we'll understand that in a greater details later. For now, SonarQube is nothing but it's a static code analysis. Okay, so it has list of policies and list of profile using which it will go and do a static code analysis on your source code. Okay, based on that it will give you a quality report, and based on that, if any of the criteria is not meeting, then it may break your build also. So we have all such conditions with SonarQube. So you'll have your unit test cases integrated, then you will have your static code analysis done. Post that, you will have your artifacts created. Artifact is nothing but it's a output file which will be eventually deployed at your end server. In case of Java, it could be a jar file, it could be a war file. In case of .NET, it could be a zip file, or it could be a .dll, whatever you're doing. If it's just a config chain, it could be a DLL. If it's complete application, it could be a zip file. In case of Python, it will be a zip file. In case of SQL database automation, it could be a DACPack file or a backpack file. These are all extension packages which will be eventually created at the end of the day when you're done with a successful build. Okay, so what is build? Merging the code with the remote repos, compiling the source code, running the unit test cases, running the code analysis, creating a build artifact. This is all together forms a continuous integration. This is a continuous loop. Your development never stops. Your developers keep on developing things. He will push the changes to the local, he will push the changes to the remote. Post that, your build pipeline will trigger. The build pipeline will have all this tasks: fetching the code from the remote repository, compiling the source code, running the test cases, running the automated test cases, publishing the artifact. Then this complete process is known as continuous integration process. Make sense? Anyone? Any questions over here? Okay, straightforward continuous integration workflow. Now how do you get this question in an interview? They will not directly ask you questions what is continuous integration. They will simply tell you that I am a .NET developer and I am creating a web application in .NET. That a web application needs to be deployed on AKS. Give me the complete CI/CD flow. How do I build and release the .NET application? This is a scenario based question. So the first part is continuous integration, wherein you talk about all this. Now because I have mentioned AKS, so there are multiple other things also comes in picture about your Docker file, creating image, pushing the image and things like that. So let's not confuse yourself. Let's change the question. Let's deploy this application on either on VM or Azure Web App. Okay, so in that case this image and all will not come. That is something we'll do it in later, don't worry. I'll show you how do we deploy a microservice application on Kubernetes and all. That is something we'll do it later, but for now let's keep it very simple. How do we deploy this application on Azure VM or Azure Web App? Okay, so in this case you don't need to add Docker file and deployment files and all this. Okay, so this is what your continuous integration basic flow should look like, and this is what you need to talk about in an interview when you're giving an interview and explaining that you have worked on end-to-end build and deployment for any application. Now this flow will not change irrespective of what application you're using, whether it's a Java application. The only difference will be while building the Java application you will be making use of a third-party build tool such as Maven, Gradle or Ent. Anyone you can use it. In case of .NET you will be using VS Build or MS Build. So these are all plugins which will help you build your application. Okay, so nothing much different. Rest all the flow remain as it is. Okay guys, so this is continuous integration. If you're all good with this, let's close this PPT and let's go back to Visual Studio. This guy is still not responding. Okay, it's responding. Not this account, use a different account. Okay, my account is this one, so I just log in. This is the email ID. Successfully logged in. Okay, now I can simply go in. This is my local path where my repository will be cloned. Let's change it to the desktop. That is a default path, guys. Source repo. I'll go to this PC and put it on the desktop itself. Clone. Let's give it a name. DevOps web app. Clone. Now this is other way of cloning. Directly cloning to the IDE. Okay. There's one more option over here. I think we have not covered this. Generate Git credentials. Now why do you use this option? Why do you need to generate credential? Because as if now you're using your user ID password, okay, for cloning. Now where exactly this is used? Now this is for developers, guys, wherein if they want to integrate Git with their application, they cannot pass in their user ID password over there. That is not the right way of doing. So they can have a temporary Git credential created. See this is how they can create, and they can pass on this information over there. They do not need to pass on their own passwords. They can have this passwords created and they can pass in this. Okay, this is also one way of cloning. Basically this is used within the application if they want to do something like fetching files within the application, then executing it, or if they have anything at such step in their application, then they can make use of this user ID and password. Just keep this in mind. Okay, now this is clone. Now if you see at the bottom, now this Git changes. What you see, this is if you're using 2019 and above, I think it's there in 2017 also, I'm not sure. There is a Git tab. So basically this is a small Git window. If you click on this Git, if you go to view and if you open this Git changes, this is the screen which will open. This screen what you see right now, and at the top you can see all your branches. So develop is one which we have cloned. If you go into the remote, you can see your main branch also. If you want to check out to your main, just double click and it will eventually check you out onto the main branch. Okay, and if you want to go back to develop, you can go back to develop. Now your incoming and outgoing commits will be visible at the top 00, and at the bottom if you can see, this is your one to commit. So this is a SQLite file. So this is a random file which got added. Don't worry about this. Later we'll add a git ignore file which will ignore all this. Okay, and then this up arrow, what you see, this is changes which got committed and which is ready to push. This is your repository, DevOps_web app, and this is a develop branch where you are right now. At the top, there's 4 toggles which you see. This is for fetch, git fetch. This is for git pull. This is for git push. This is git sync. Sync is basically will pull the changes first, then it will push the changes. So basically it will sync your local copy with the remote copy. Okay, now if you want to create any new branch directly, you can create a new branch also over here. Okay, it will be created based out of develop. Let me tell you, when the developer developing things, they will not go and look into Azure repos mostly. All they will do it directly from here. Like if they want to create a temp branch for their development, they can simply do it over here directly, this way. See, we are checked out with temp branch. Okay, now when you do a commit, there are multiple options which you have: commit all and push, commit all and sync, stash. We all know what is stash, correct? Hopefully, guys, what is stash? Git stash, what it does?
Where you keep your
Anyone?
commit code, temporary code as uncommitted.
Perfect. Wherein if you want to have your working directory to be clean and you don't want to lose your uncommitted tasks, so you can stash it, correct? Okay, that's good. So this is a very good and very useful Git window, guys, which developers will be using 95% of time. And plus, if you're using any IDE tool for your development, like you'll be creating the build pipelines, release pipeline, you'll be writing the YAML scripts, so even you will be using any such IDE tools. Okay, so 3 ways of accessing we saw from the command line, we saw from the portal, from the GUI. Now this is the third, using an IDE tool, how you will be using Git. Now with Visual Studio, Git comes by default. This plugin which you see, it comes by default, so you don't have to worry. Okay, this is, I'm using 2019, guys. This is screen is of 2019, but even if you're using the higher version, you will find this screen, Git changes screen over there also. Okay, let's go and create a first ASP.NET project. Okay, now let me go to the files, let me go to the new project. Okay, just look for ASP.NET Core web app at the very top. ASP.NET Core. Now, what is the difference between ASP.NET Legacy and ASP.NET Core? Anyone? Any idea? ASP.NET Core web app and ASP.NET Legacy. So the only difference is ASP.NET Core is platform independent. It can be deployed on Linux, it can be deployed on Mac, it can be deployed on Windows. It supports IIS, it supports Nginx web servers and many others. And if you go with ASP.NET Legacy, that is platform dependent. That means it can be only deployed on Windows, and the only web server it supports, it is IIS web server. So even Microsoft, they knew that if they don't upgrade and if they don't make anything independent, and if they will be thrown out of the market. So they have come up with ASP.NET Core, which can be deployed on any OS basically. Okay, so that is what we'll see, because this is the application which we're developing right now. We'll have to go and deploy it on, now I'll deploy it on Azure Web App, then we'll deploy it on container, Docker container, then we'll deploy it on Kubernetes, then we'll deploy it on AKS. We'll create that application as an image which will push eventually into ACR. So many things we are doing. So yeah, we'll stick with ASP.NET Core. So don't worry, you don't need to learn ASP.NET. we will be using the default templates which we get, and that is the template we'll be using. So it's not an hardcore application which we are developing, don't worry. Okay, so ASP.NET Core Web App, this is the option we select, the first, and if you see, it's written in C#, Linux, Mac OS, Windows, and it can be deployed wherever you want. Okay, let's click on next. Give a name, whatever name you want to give it. Name it as DevOps Web Apps, something like this. And where exactly this is getting stored? This is getting stored on your local DB repo. This is the folder which we have created. DB repo? Are you sure this is the name of the folder? No, this is the name of the folder. DevOps Web App. Okay, create a solution. This is the 3.1 out of support. This was LTS. Why it's showing out of support? This is the one which we can use, 3.1, and let's go and create. The latest was in 5.0, but even the 5.0 is showing out of support. Okay, forget about it. Let's go and create this project. So basically what we did, first we have created a branch. Okay, then we clone the first we have created the repository, then we clone the repository, then we have created a new branch, temp branch, then we have created a project altogether. These are multiple things which we do. Now if you go and see, there are there are more changes, more than 100 changes should. So all your files which is related to your application is getting created right now. Now how do you view? You can view in the Solution Explorer. How do I get this Solution Explorer? Go to Views, there's an option of Solution Explorer. It will eventually open this. So this is all related to your project. You have your www root, wherein you can keep all your static and dynamic files. You can keep your pages over here and all your application settings. So this is a web application which you're creating, and if you have any dependencies, all your dependencies will come over here. We don't need to learn this, we are not a developer, so just an FYI. Okay, if you want to make any changes, I can simply, this is your index page guys, so basically this is your home page wherein you can make whatever changes you want to do. Okay, so it's welcome, so I'll just edit this to welcome to devopsmela. Okay, now let's save. At the top you can see the save. If you want to see what exactly you're doing, you can do a local build and you can test it. At the top if you see, there is a integrated IIS Express. This is nothing but it's a web server using which you can run this application locally. Now if you see, this build has started, so whatever we have changed, the build has started, and it will start your application in a debug mode, and it will open a browser, the default browser, and it will launch the application. If there's any issue, you can see that in the debug mode. So this is a local testing which you're doing right now. So on a local host, your application will be up and running. Let's wait. It may take time guys. See, the debug mode has started. Okay, so it has opened the browser on the local host 44345. Let's wait while the application is coming up. Now if you see at the Visual Studio, this is how it will look like. It will start checking everything. It has, this Visual Studio has application inside integrated, so it is also giving you application inside events. You can see those events once the application is up. and you can even see the memory CPU utilization which is happening right now. So that's a diagnostic tool, everything comes in. See, welcome to devopsmela. This is your, if I just go through all these pages, you can see those hits coming in. It will come over here. Breakpoints, local. So it will all start popping up once you start using the application. You can see the events, memory uses, CPU uses. You can see all the things over here. So this is kind of a local testing. If you want to do it, you can make use of this IIX Express, and as soon as you close this window, all this will be gone. And you can see the debug logs over here. Okay. So this is a quick glance. If you want to test your application locally, this is how you will be doing things locally. Now you got more than 99 changes, 99 plus changes which you have got, and in this there are so many files which is not even required. The cache.css, all these files are there. So this is all added because this is the first time we are adding the project. If you see the A at the very extreme right, A means it's been added. Okay, if there is any changes to an existing file, you'll see M. M is to modified. Okay, keep this in mind. Now let me do a commit. So let's do an initial commit. Okay, commit all, which will basically commit to your local. So this is getting committed on your local. It will not get pushed to the temp branch. But and there's no temp branch also, guys. When you do a push, automatically the temp branch will also get created. So keep that in mind. So things are getting pushed locally. Done. There's a commit ID got created. Now if you see, there's one commit to push. Okay, and if you see this, you got this commit ID created. If you click on this commit ID, you can see the history at the left hand side. This is all what changes are there in this commit. 105 changes. Okay. Now if I want to push, I can simply push it. Now pushing has started. If you come to the git changes, you can see successfully pushed temp branch to origin. Now if I come back over here, this branch would have been created automatically. See, do you see this? The branch got created automatically. Did we create this branch in the remote? No, that was created directly for my local. Now if you see this branch has all the files. This is your application. Correct? Your pages, if you go into the pages, index.html, welcome to devopsmela. Your application is pushed into your repository. It's there in the temp branch. If you want to push it in the develop branch, either you can create a pull request from here, or you can create a pull request from here also. See, as soon as I click on create pull request, it took you to the same page of creating a pull request. So basically developers, they use Visual Studio. If they're working with .NET or .NET Core or .NET or .NET APIs or anything as such, so they use this screen a lot. Okay, so when they come back, this is what they see. Now you can integrate your user story, everything with it, and you can just create a pull request. Now I'm not covering this this approval and all. We have already done that. Okay, so I'll just do a squash. I don't need the unnecessary history, because if you go and look into my temp branch, you can see there's a commit. So I don't want that, so I can have my own commit done. If you go and look into the develop, you can see a new commit. Initial commit was created. readme.md was added previously. Now if you look into my develop, I have all the changes. Okay, this is how the developer will be working, guys. This is how they will be creating a temp branch for themselves, doing the development. Once they are done with the development, they will push the changes to the develop branch, and from the develop branch we'll have our build pipelines. Okay, in between, if you want to put in some policies and things like that, it's totally up to you. If you want to restrict, if you want to add talisman in between, you want to have approval process, you want to have branch policies added, so that is totally up to the project and what kind of security you're enabling. You can go and put that. Okay, are we good till here? Anyone, any questions, any doubt before we jump on and start creating the first build pipeline?
Yes,
Anyone?
kind of,
No one? No doubt?
Do you want to run through it one more time? Please.
Yes, why not?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Let's do a quick recap what all things we did. Okay, what is the target? We are creating a .NET application and we need to build and release that .NET application. How the application is created, that is none of your concern, guys. That will be created by developers. I'll be sharing this project file, this application which I've created. I'll be uploading this application on the drive, and if you guys want to directly access this, so you can just open this folder and you can just go into this, and there is a solution file over here. Basically, if you just click on the solution file, you'll have this page. You'll have something like this open. Okay, the only thing you have to do is you have to create your own branch, your own repository, and copy this file content, this entire thing into that repository on your local. That's it. And do a git add and git push. That's it. Okay, if you want to make things very simple. But this application creation was not that difficult. We are just using the default template which we get it with Visual Studio. Okay, then talking about that, then what we did, once we have the application, I went ahead over here, created a new branch. Why did I create? Just to give you a glimpse. I could have done things on develop branch also, but how in reality, in real time, the developer, they do the development. Just to have an idea, I've created a new branch over here. Then inside that new branch, I have created my project. Then once I'm done with my changes, I tested it locally. Okay, things were looking good, no error. Then I pushed everything to my temp branch. When I pushed everything to my temp branch, it was reflecting inside my temp branch. Then I have created a pull request. That pull request was basically from temp branch to my develop branch, and I have pushed everything from my temp branch to my develop branch. Why did I push to my develop branch? Because all my pipelines, the integration pipelines will be created at the develop branch, not at the temp branch. Because this is a temporary branch created by developers and it may get deleted later. Develop branch and the main branch is something we will be taking care. So hence things were pushed into the develop branch. Okay, so this is what we did till now. Okay, hopefully makes sense. Now this is something you need to do it by yourself, then only you'll understand more. For now, this is what we did. Okay, what next? Then now we can have a build pipeline created. Now build pipeline in Azure DevOps, to be very specific, there are two types of build pipeline: classic and YAML based. Classic is more like a GUI based, wherein you can go and select the plugins manually and you can have your build pipeline created very easily. The second is the YAML based, which is on a concept of PAC, that is pipeline as a code methodology. Now YAML is the one which we need to learn, guys. More than 80% of your task what you do nowadays will be based on PAC methodology. So that is something we'll be focused more on, but it doesn't mean that we'll not do classic. We'll do classic also. The classic reason is you come across some project wherein they are using all classic, then you should know how to work with classic. Classic is very easy. It's a GUI based wherein you can select the plugins manually. And YAML is wherein you need to write scripts. Okay, it's not that difficult. Don't worry about the scripting part. If you don't know, I'll cover that from scratch. So basically you need to write things by yourself, and there are plugins which I'll show you which will eventually help you to write those scripts. Okay, so don't worry about anything if you don't know. So what is the benefit of using YAML based is your build and release will be part of your repository. What do I mean by if it is part of your repository? If it is part of your repository, the first thing you will have all the benefits of a Git. What are the benefits of Git? It will be versioned automatically. If there's any change, a commit will be created and your things will get versioned automatically. Secondly, it will be backed up. You will have multiple copies of your build and release pipelines also. You can easily collaborate with other developers. You can share that piece of code, and if there's any changes required, then the other developers can help you out doing those changes. Plus, it will be readily available anywhere in the world. And if you want to create a new pipeline out of that YAML, easily you can clone and create new pipelines very easily. So these are the benefits of pipeline as a code. Hence, we will need to learn pipeline as a code methodology a lot. Okay, so starting with classic, how do we create a classic pipeline? Let's see that. I'll go to the pipeline section. The first pipelines option, what you see, this is where your build pipeline will come in. Okay, one important thing before we jump on this, there is a form which you need to fill in, guys. If you're using the Azure DevOps for very first time, even I am using for the very first time. This is my new account. This is the form which you need to fill in. This is a request which will go to Microsoft, and they will enable free tier agent access to you. This is the form which you guys need to fill in. Make sure to fill in because this takes time. It's around 2 to 3 working days, and after that they will enable this for you. So you'll get a confirmation from Microsoft once you fill in the form, and then they will have the free tier agent pool access enabled to you. I don't have it now. Is it active? Okay, let's go and use it and let's see, because this account I've created way long, but we need to fill in the form if we want to execute the pipelines. Okay, so make sure to fill the form now itself and be ready. While you come to this section, you need to have your agent pool active so that you can execute your build and releases. Okay, or else it will not let you execute anything. So keep this in mind. Okay, so this is the section wherein you can have your first build created. So you just click on create build. Now at the top, whatever you see, this options, whatever you see, this is all telling you to write YAML scripts. You see this YAML. So basically, even Microsoft is not giving you classic option to create any classic pipeline, because even they want you to write YAML scripts only, because classic will be sooner or later it will go obsolete. So hence even I am not focusing more on that. But yeah, if you come down at the bottom, use the classic editor to create pipeline without YAML. Now this is at the bottom somewhere is written, like if someone is new and if they are coming to this screen for the very first time, they will not even go to classic. That is the whole thing what Microsoft is trying to do over here. Okay, so but we'll focus on classic first. This is how classic will give you a GUI based approach wherein you can go and select things. It is asking you to select the source, where exactly your source is. So we have the code in Azure Git, correct? We don't have it in GitHub or Bitbucket or Subversion. Subversion is SVN, guys. It's still there because there are people around the world who are still using SVN. That's a centralized version control. If you have anything as such, you can use it. Other Git, apart from this, if you have GitLab and all, then you can. So basically you need to connect to that, how the connection will be created and all. You need to create a service connection in order to connect to all these third-party tools. For now, we'll stick with Azure repos. I'll show you later how do we connect, don't worry. This is the project name, this is the repository name, this is the branch. We are creating the first pipeline. Continue. Now again it is telling you to use YAML. Everywhere it is telling you to go and use YAML. but we need to stick with classic. Now what exactly? Okay, perfect. Let me reshare. Okay guys, so where were we? Talking about the build pipeline. Okay, so I'm not using this YAML for now, so we'll stick with this plugins which we have. Now what application we are using? We are using ASP.NET Core. So if you see, there are two applications, .NET Desktop, which is more the legacy one, and the ASP.NET. So automatically it is detecting the source code, and it has detected that it has ASP.NET application, so it's giving you all the ASP.NET application at the top. Okay, so I'll select this one. So as soon as I select, you can see all the relevant task which is relevant to this project, and it is giving you all the tasks which can be used for building this application. Now NuGet, we'll talk about NuGet in details, but NuGet is just a third-party tool. It's a package management tool basically, which is managing all the third-party plugins related to ASP.NET. So we required NuGet, guys. Even though I'm not using any dependency, I have not used any NuGet packages over here. But in order to build a .NET application, you will need NuGet install. So in order to build your NuGet, in order to run your .NET application, you will need NuGet. Even if you're running it by yourself, building it everything by yourself, you will need NuGet installed on your system. So this is what it is doing. It is installing NuGet. Where exactly it is installing? It is installing on the agent pool. Agent pool is nothing but it's a mediator wherein all your execution is happening. So if you want to build this application, you need to have an agent pool, correct? Agent pool, let's go back and understand this agent pool first. Okay, agent pool is nothing but it's a VM. It's a virtual machine which has everything installed, already installed. Like what all things needs to be installed if you want to run a ASP.NET application. So you need to have MS build install on top of it. You will need VS build install on top of it. You need a .NET plugins install on top of it. Then only you can run a ASP.NET build on top of it, correct? So this agent is nothing but it's a pre-built, pre-compiled VM which can be used to run or build any application. So this is all. There are two types of agent pool which you will come across. I'll talk about agent pool in a great details when we learn agent pool. So there are self-hosted agent pool and there are Microsoft hosted agent pool. The one which we are using, the form which I have created, that is for Microsoft hosted agent pool. Later I'll teach you how to create your own agent pool and how do you run your build and release using your own agent pool. That is something we'll see later. For now we are using Microsoft hosted agent pool. So all this task basically, in order to build your .NET application, these are the list of tasks which you need to run. Where do you run this? Is it getting executed on your local? No. If you see, I'm using a browser based Azure DevOps. Okay, so this is on browser. So if I'm running this browser right now from Mumbai, if tomorrow if I go to US, I can do the same thing from there also. So this is not there on my local system or nothing as such. This is a browser based Azure DevOps which we are using right now. Okay, so where these steps will get executed? So these steps will get executed on this agent pool. From where did I get this agent pool? This is a Microsoft hosted agent pool. So Microsoft is giving me 2000 minutes free for my learning perspective. Can I use this 2000 minutes free for my production? No. At that time your company has to go and purchase the agent pools from Microsoft. It's not free. Okay, this is for learning. Microsoft is giving me this VM free. How this VM is created, things like that, we'll understand that in a greater details. Don't worry about this, but for now just imagine this is a VM on which VM, which is a pre-compiled VM which has everything which is required to build your .NET application. Okay, let's rename this. I have some good name given to it. So let's name it as web app. develop. Okay, so this is for web format develop branch. Okay guys, now if you want to know more about the agent pool, this is what the agent is, Windows 2019. You can select other agent pool also, Ubuntu, Mac OS and things like that, but Windows 2019 will be more relevant to your .NET application. If I'm using a Java, I would have selected Ubuntu, but for ASP.NET, Windows 2019 is more relevant. That is the reason it is automatically selected. Now if you see at this is taking the solution file. Now what exactly this is a relative approach. Now let me explain this. Let me break this down for you, what exactly the star and /star is all about. Let me save it for now. I'm not running it today, but let me save it for now, and let's understand what exactly this is. Okay, now if you go to your branches, files, where exactly your let's go to develop branch, where exactly your solution file is. Your solution file is somewhere over here, correct? Somewhere over here. Now when this will execute, when this pipeline will execute, what will happen? Everything, your complete source code will get copied to an agent pool server. That is this server. It's a temporary server which will be created, and the life cycle of that server is only limited to when the build is executing. If the build fails or build gets successful, the server will be automatically deleted from the backend. Okay, now the life cycle is only limited to your build execution. Now in order to execute your build, you will need this source code, correct? You need this file. Okay, so that file will be cloned. This is the location. It will go and clone this solution file, and it will put it on Azure agent pool. This is what happens in the backdrop. Okay, then all this task will get executed, because without the file the task will not get executed. Now because this is getting cloned on a third-party server, not third-party, it's a Microsoft server, how will my agent will know where exactly the file is? We cannot have an absolute path like this defined. Okay, it will be as if now we are able to view that my solution is kept somewhere over here, but in reality you will have so many files, so many applications, it will be very difficult for you to understand where exactly the solution file is. You can go and manually view it, but for agent to automatically file this file becomes very difficult. So hence this relative path. Now what exactly this thing is doing? Let's see this. These are divided into two categories, **, and then you got something like .sln. Now if we all know this is a wildcard entry. This means it will match anything starting with ending with SLN. If you have anything abc.sln, or if you have anything like such as cdb like .sln, so anything matching with ending with .sln, it will go and match, like something like numbers and .sln. So it will basically match anything ending with .sln. This is what this wildcard entry is doing. Okay, now what this guy is doing, this is nothing but your levels of folder. Now your agent pool will not know where exactly this file is kept, at what level the file is kept. Now what do I mean by levels? Just imagine this is the folder which got cloned onto your agent pool. Now your agent pool has to go and look into the folder, each folder, and he needs to find this SLN file. Okay, so first he will do, and he will go and check into this folder. Then there are so many folders. Okay, it will look into the folder if the SLN file is present or not. Just imagine it is not present. Okay, then it will go again in the bin folder. It will start looking, do we have SLN? It will go in debug folder, do we have SLN? It will go in netcore and look for it, do we have SLN file? And imagine the SLN file was found over here. So such big path this 2* will take. It will be done automatically. So basically what this is doing, it will go and check in all the levels where this file is kept ending with .sln, and it will get those files for executing the task. Okay, so that is what it is looking, path to solution or package config. So basically it is looking for the exact path where exactly the file is kept. If you don't want to do this way, if you want to have a absolute path, you can even go and select this manually where exactly the file is. You can do it this way also, but this is not recommended, guys. The reason is later if you want to create a new build pipeline, then you need to go and manually go and change this absolute path which you have selected. If it is relative, you can reuse this pipeline again if you want. Okay, so the recommended one is this one. This is a way of not hard coding anything. Now if you see this, by this way I am hard coding the pipeline, and if I'm hard coding anything, that means I cannot reuse it. Okay, so this is the one approach. Okay, I think I will stop over here, guys. It's too much for today, and we'll continue this topic again tomorrow. And once the build is done, I'll cover the agent pool topic first, then we'll move on forward. Okay, that's it for today. If anyone has any question, please do let me know. We'll have this topic again recap tomorrow, and we'll continue with this build. Understanding this build is very important, because later I'll be using the same concept and I'll have a YAML file created of the exact same build. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, please do let me know before we wind up the call for today. Anyone? Any questions, guys? Let me see if there's anything in the chat. Cron tab. We haven't covered anything about cron tab, Kishore, yet. So what exactly the question is? Kishore, can you be more specific, please? Okay, no problem. So cron tab we haven't covered, but there is a way of scheduling things in pipelines. That is something I'll cover later. That's pipeline scheduler, wherein based on timing and dates we can execute our pipelines automatically. Okay, anything else, guys? Nothing? Okay, if there's nothing, so thank you very much. Let's meet up tomorrow again, and let's continue the same topic of continuous integration. Okay, bye bye.